Okay, so this is the second part of our week one live session recording. We're going to talk about week one's assignment. You're going to be creating, editing, and moving shapes in Illustrator, and that's all we're going to really focus on. You're going to have 3 artboards, which is like 3 pages for you to complete, okay? And in those 3 artboards, you're going to have some things you're going to have to do. They are going to be 8.5 by 11 inches artboards, and I'll show you how to create that. So you don't have to go and add them when you do them. I'll show you exactly how to do it, so when you open your document, you're all set to go. Artboard 1 has some specifics for you. You have a 2x2 drawing of a square and a circle, a 5-pointed star, a 7-pointed star, and a 10-pointed star. And you also have to create a triangle using the polygon tool. Now, the key to this first artboard is not only making sure you have the points of your stars and your square and your circle the correct size, but also that you don't use a stroke. You just have a fill color. And you want to arrange it into an interesting design on the artboard. Now, artboard 2 gives you a little bit more leeway when designing. You can do 2 or more rectangles, at least 2 ellipses, at least 2 stars, and at least 2 polygons. You can play with the sizes, the colors, the shapes, the strokes, and arrange it into an interesting design on the artboard, okay? You can combine shapes for a more interesting design. So if you want to create an image with these shapes, you can definitely do that, okay? So artboard 3 is going to be very interesting. You're going to create what we call a template layer. And on this template layer, you're going to take a raster image, which is going to be in JPEG, and you're going to put this as your template. And then you're going to make another layer called final artwork, and you're going to be tracing this layer. So let me go back to the slides really quick and show you exactly what I mean. So the third artboard for this assignment, you're going to choose one of these drawings, and they're all here in your assignment. So choose whichever one you want to choose. It's up to you. You can choose one of these 3 cats. I guess when they did this, the person was a cat person. So you have one of these 3 cats that you can choose from. You have the bear, and then you have the chick. Doesn't matter which one. You choose the one that you want to trace or have as your template layer. You're going to put it as your template layer, and then you're going to use the different shapes and tools in Illustrator to trace your drawing, okay? That's what you're going to have to do for your week 1 assignment. When you are done, you're going to save your file as DES103_assignment1 and your first and last name, and it's going to be an AI file. You're going to submit that to me for grading. And what I will do when I go through the walkthrough of how to do this, I'm going to show you exactly what I do to grade your assignment, so you can double check yourself to make sure everything's okay before you turn it in as well. So first, let me talk about Adobe Illustrator. What we have here is the main screen here. Yours might look a little different from mine. Anything that you have as far as last open, you can do it by name, like anything that you have that, you know, that you worked on previously is going to be in this window. It's like your saved work window. So if you're looking for saved files, it's going to be under recent, and you can pull them back up from here, okay? And that's as you work in Illustrator. For some of you, maybe you're first time in Illustrator, so you may not have any files there. But for those who have used Illustrator before, anything that you've worked on can be found in this, in this, this section here called the recent. And you can filter them. Sometimes I do them as list items, depending on where I am. Especially in Photoshop. And then sometimes I like showing the grid so I can see exactly what it is as well. You have these sort of, I guess, pre-templates here where it says start a new file fast, where if you want to do a letter, which is the 8.5 by 11 file, you can do that here as well. This is going to be called, like when you go to create new, this is called the new document dialog. And what happens is when you click on here, you're going to get some options that show you exactly, you know, some more, I guess, advanced options, so to speak, for how you want your document set up. Let me click on it again, then go through. There we go. Once you click on that, you're going to have this part right here is called the new document dialog. You have your recent items here, like things that you may have opened before in different sizes. You have your saved work here, and in your saved work, you have templates as well. These are like free Photoshop templates that you use. Some of these I personally use for different things, so that's why I have these particular things for my saved items here. And then you have mobile, which you have a blank, what they call presets, and then you have some more templates here. What these presets are is if you're building something in Illustrator that's like for mobile, like for iPhone, tablets, Androids, for web, is different web pages size, you have those as well. And then for print, you have your letter, your legal, your tabloid, and then if you're happy to create something for video, then it has it in HD, 720, 1080, 4K, all of those things as well. So, and then you have your arts and illustration, which is like postcard, posters, and things of that nature as well. So you have presets for any option that you choose, okay? I'm going to go to print because we're going to start off with the 8.5 by 11 artboard that we have to do for week 1. Now, on your quiz, it said something about, the different type of measurements you have for your documents when you're in the new document dialog. Well, if you go here, you'll see all of them. You have points, picas, inches, millimeters, centimeters, and pixels. Now, remember in our assignment, it did state it has to be an 8.5 by 11 document, and it was inches. So I'm going to change this to inches. And you see it already changed it to 8.5 by 11 because I had this selected. Let's just say I had something else selected and I went back here. And you see how it changed it to points? If I go back and change this to inches, it converts it. And you want to do this before you click on create, and you want to make sure it's in the right measurements. Otherwise, when you do anything else in Illustrator, it will be in whatever measurement you set up your document in. So if you start working in centimeters, everything is going to be in centimeters. So please make sure that you select inches. Make sure it's showing 8.5 by 11. You have your different landscapes here. You'll automatically choose the correct one, so make sure it stays there. And then we talked about artboards. Artboards you can actually define before you open your document by going to this artboard section. Our assignment here says that you have 3 artboards, 8.5 by 11 with 3 artboards. So I'm going to go back here and just change this number to 3. Everything else is all set, so I'm going to click on create. When I click on create, it's going to create a document that has 3 8.5 by 11 artboards or pages. It's called Artboards in Illustrator, but they sort of look like pages, similar to what you may see in InDesign, okay? One thing I want to make you aware of, depending on how your Illustrator is set up, sometimes your artboards won't look like mine. Maybe they're side by side, and that's totally fine. Just as long as you have 3 is all that matters for this assignment, okay? So there are some things I want to discuss with you about the way that Illustrator works, okay? For my PC people, your screen looks like mine. For my Mac people, you're probably going to look at this like, why is Instructor Rose your screen like this? My screen doesn't look like this. Help me, what is going on? The only difference between my screen as a PC user and yours as a Mac is going to be this top bar up here. I believe you have like the red, yellow, green dots. You might have the Apple symbol, and then it shows Illustrator, right? And then this bar is going to be at the way top, and it's going to be set. It looks like it's separated from your Illustrator screen, and it's going to be in gray. That is the only difference between what you're seeing on the screen now versus what you're seeing on your screen. So when I go up here, just remember to go to the way top of your bar to pull those options down, but everything else is the exact same, okay? One thing I do want to talk about too before I start is the thing called workspaces. We talk about workspaces in week 4, but I wanted to touch on it a little bit here. So when you open up your Illustrator, if your workspace is something that you don't like, what I recommend is that you switch them between Essentials, and Essential Classic. I have mine on Essential Classic now. I'll switch to Essential so you can see how it looks. It just puts everything sort of in a more tab view versus Essential Classic sort of condenses the things where you just see icons. So switch between the two, see which one you like the best, okay? Now, let's talk about some other things you have here. On the left-hand side, these are your tools. Your tools are in your tool panel. And on next week's quiz, it's going to talk about that. These here are tools. Everything that's here is a tool. It's not a particular panel, but it's a tool within the tool panel, okay? You have your selection tool, which is always your black arrow key. Your selection tool moves things around. You can rotate it, you can expand it, you can shrink it with the selection tool. The direct selection tool in Illustrator allows you to really click on the anchor points and manipulate an object, and I'll show you that in just a moment, okay? You do have your pen tool here, which you can draw things using your pen tool. The same thing with your curvature tool. I'll talk about that when I get to the third art row when we do the tracing. You have your text box, which we'll discuss in week 3. We'll work with text and change your text to outlines. You have your line tool, and then you have your shapes. All of your shapes are going to be here. So one thing I want you to pay attention to is when you have these white arrows, they do expand out. So anytime you see a white arrow in the box right here where the tool is, sort of do a right click on that box and you'll see the rest of your tools here. So you see I have the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, the ellipse tool. You see I have the polygon tool and the star tool. We really don't use the flare tool in this course, but I do want you to be aware that it's there. But we are going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 6 tools in week 1's assignment as well. All right, welcome back, Jamie. So let's go over to this panel here, which is your color panel, okay? This box right here, that sort of solid, is your fill, okay? This is your stroke. So anytime you get to a part of assignment where it says we don't want a stroke or don't put a stroke on this, the only thing you have to do is to click here, click the stroke panel, and just click the X. If you have to do something where, and normally when you're drawing like with the pen tool, with the curvature tool and the pencil tool, which, let me see what my pencil tool is. It's under here, the pencil tool. Most of the times when you're drawing with those tools, you are going to want a stroke. So normally I turn my fill off and then I turn the stroke back on by just selecting a color. Okay. Notice when I do that, you have some other panels here as well, which do the same thing. This is the fill and this is the stroke. But one thing with the stroke, once you select it, you can change how big the stroke is. It's sort of changing like the width of whatever you're drawing with. The best thing I can describe it is like making the difference from the line looking like you draw, it's drawn with the pencil versus it being drawn with a Sharpie. That's what a stroke does when you're drawing in a Illustrator, okay? You change the way that it looks, and you can change, you know, how that stroke looks as well, okay? So those are some basic tools that we're going to be going over today. Another thing I want to talk about to you as well is your layers panel. Your layers panel is it's going to be like these 2 squares that are here. For any reason, before I go any further, that if I click on something and you don't see it when you get an Illustrator, always go to the window drop down at the top, and you see I have layers checked, but if it wasn't checked, and I'll show you what I mean here, I can always go here and open it up. So if you're unsure what something does, or you're like, oh my goodness, I thought I had this panel, I don't see it anymore, where did it go? Just simply go to Windows and click on it and it'll come up for you, okay? But this is your layers panel here. So you have layers, which you can make as many layers as you want, just like Photoshop or any other program. You can delete the layers here too. You can create sublayers. So if I click here and I click on this one right here, where it says create a new sublayer, I can nest layers in there as well. That's going to become very helpful with you on your week 3 assignment when you do your self-portrait. And I'll show you how you can do it for this assignment as well. But that's going to be very important for you to make sure that your layers are organized, okay? Now, earlier we talked about artboards, right? Artboards has its own panel as well. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to Artboards. And it's always this one right here that sort of has like the rectangles in landscape and portrait. If I ever wanted to modify an artboard, you can do so by double clicking on the artboard. Actually, double clicking here will take you to that artboard. So I'm on artboard 1, artboard 2, and then artboard 3. So if I'm trying to go to my artboard to see what my artwork is, you can do that. But these options right here, that's this little paper clip is what I call it, this paper. If you double click there, you're going to get the artboard options. So what this does, it allows you to change the width and the height. So if you, for any reason, didn't do your width and your height for your week 1 assignment at 8.5 by 11, you can always go back in and change it. What you can also do is to change the width for an artboard. Every artboard doesn't have to be the same size. And for some of you, you might get that question on the quiz. So keep in mind that you can change the width and the height of each artboard. They don't have to remain the same. But for this assignment, it should all be 8.5 by 11. And FYI, this is how I check to make sure you have your artboards at 8.5 by 11. I simply go back into the artboard panel, which is here. I double click on each of your artboards, and I'm checking that they're 8.5 by 11. So this is how you can do a self-check yourself just to make sure that everything is correct, because this is what I'm going to do for your assignment as well, okay? So double click 8.5 by 11. But on your quiz, keep in mind that you can go and change this to any size that you want for any future projects. I want to talk about this little drop down here. I always do that to zoom in, but I'm going to go to fit on screen so I can see everything. I'm going to go to the selection tool, which is the black arrow, and then go back to fit on screen to see if it works. And for some reason, it's stuck on 56.68. Let me try it again. I think it's trying to fit that on the screen. But if that doesn't work for you, you can press the Command key if you're on a Mac, Control key if you're on the PC, and the plus and minus sign to zoom in how you want. That's what I'm using for my shortcut keys here, okay? Let's talk a little bit about shapes. So you have your rectangle tool, your round ellipse tool, and your polygon tool. I'm going to talk about the rectangle tool because I want to show you a live example of how fill and stroke work, okay? So right now I'm about to draw a rectangle. I have the fill set to red, and I don't have a stroke on it, okay? When you're drawing shapes, you can freehand draw it by just dragging your mouse however you want it. If you want your shapes to be proportional, which is a quiz question, you're going to want to hold down the Shift key and then drag it. So it could be the exact same size when you drag it, okay? So that's how you create proportion shapes, okay? Another thing I want you to pay attention to is that when you do that and press the Shift key, sometimes you see I have the width and the height. So I believe for the assignment, it has to be 2 inches by 2 inches. So this is a way you can do it that way too. Sometimes it's a little hard to get it right at 2. I'll show you how to fix that as well. But if you do the Shift, you'll see the measurements as well, okay? Your direct selection tool is your black arrow key. Again, I told you it moves things. You can even move it off the artboard. You can move it on another artboard if you want. You can rotate things as well. You can make things larger, smaller. And when you do the larger and smaller, I'm going to press Command Z or Control Z to go back to where it was. If you hold down the Shift key, it does it in proportion, okay? So this is what your selection tool does. It allows you to rotate, resize, or move a particular object, okay? Now your direct selection tool, which you're probably going to be using a little bit with the week, with the artboard 3 that you have, this really allows you to manipulate the actual shape itself. And let me show you what I mean. First, before I go off the selection tool, one of the things I like about Illustrator now is that you see how you have these curves here? They're smart objects now. So you can change like how the points or the ends of a shape look if you want it to be more curved. Just the FYI. That's what pulling down on that circle does. But when I go to the direct selection tool and I click on an object, I get the same thing, but let's just say I double click on one of the points here. You notice on this square, I have 4 anchors, okay? So let's just say I take this anchor and I want to change the angle of it. You can do that with the direct selection tool. It allows you to really manipulate the shape a little bit more. But when you click on an anchor point, you're going to really have to double click on it before you manipulate it. This is the center, so it's not going to move as much, but it allows you to move the actual object. But when you hover over and you get to an anchor, you're allowed to move the corners of the shape as well. You can also change like how the corners look up here when you press the corners. The anchor points also have handles on them as well, which we'll discuss a little bit more in week 2's assignment, which is going to be tracing. So this is what your anchor, your direct selection tool does. The best way I can describe the difference between the two is that your selection tool moves, rotates, and resizes. Your direct selection tool really can change the entire look of a shape, okay? I'm going to draw another shape for you guys. I'm going to take off the stroke. I'm in the fill, and we're going to add a stroke. Just make it black. Another quiz question of yours talks about what happens, or what do you need to do? Like if you had a shape that only has a stroke on it, doesn't have a fill. Well, if I click on it, I can't move it. You see, I'm clicking on it, I can't move it at all. I'm pressing my arrow keys, I can't move it. Anytime you have a shape that just has a stroke only and no fill, you're going to have to click on the stroke in order to move it, okay? So just an FYI as you go through tracing things for this week as well. I'm going to go back to my layer panel really quick and show you that everything that I just did is on this layer because I have this layer highlighted. But if I go to layer 1 and now draw an ellipse, draw a circle, you see the circles on that layer and my square is on this layer. And you can sort of always tell what's on the layer by the line that's here when you sort of highlight it. It's blue, and you see that this box right here and this color here is blue. And then if I go here and go to the green one, it sort of selects just. Anytime you want to select anything in an entire layer, click right after this circle that's here on the layer and it selects everything for you. So if you want to select everything at one time, you can do that. You can select everything, include everything from all layers by taking your selection tool and dragging them over the shape as well. And it selects all the layers. And you see that they're selected by these little green, blue, and red squares that are here, okay? So that's just a brief, I guess, intro on some things that you're going to see in your assessment and, how Illustrator is sort of set up. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the week 1 assignment. I'm going to do Artboard 1. Now on Artboard 1, it says that you have to have a 2x2 drawing of a square and a circle, a 5-pointed star, a 7-pointed star, and a 10-pointed star. So here's what I recommend when you do your assignment. I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to go back into Illustrator. I'm going to take my text box and I'm going to draw it out here. If it can, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't catch up with me. And I just did a copy, a Command C, and a Command V. Copy and paste. I selected everything. Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V if you're on a PC. I'm just going to make the text a little bit bigger. And I do this so I don't have to keep going back and forth between 2 screens. Put the instructions here and then you'll be fine, okay? I'm going to delete my first layer here. I'm going to do layer 1, and I'm going to rename this Artboard 1. I'm going to make a new layer here by clicking on this art icon, put this layer below it. I'm going to call it Artboard 2. And I'm going to click this layer here, drag it below it, and I'm going to call it, I'm double clicking on it to select the letters, by the way. I'm going to call it Artboard 3. So that way, when you go in and design your artboards and put the things that are supposed to be put there, you'll have it separated and you know, okay, well, this shape was on artboard too, so let me click on it and see exactly where it is. Just one moment. So what I'm going to do now is work on this first one. So the first one, or the first step rather, states that you have to do a 2x2 drawing of a square and a circle. Now remember, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is when you do this assignment that you have to give each a different feel and no outline, which is also right here. So when I'm drawing these shapes, I want to make sure that I don't put an outline on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is to maybe choose a color and then just make sure that that stroke is checked off back here. Okay, so I'm just going to do this in pink or fuchsia. It says 2x2 drawings of a square and a circle. So let me start with the square first. With the square, I'm going to take my shift key and just draw it right until I get to where it's almost 2. So this one's right at 2 inches, okay? Let's just say that you didn't get it at 2x2 like I just did. No worries. Go to your selection tool, click on the shape, and you notice that this top bar up here changed when I clicked on the shape. Click on this transform tool here. And you see where you have width and height? You can change the width and height to 2 inches by 2 inches. So if you don't get it right on 2, like if you get 2.002 or something, this is how you can go in and change it to make sure it's right. So it says a 2x2 drawing of a square and a circle, a 5-pointed star, 7-pointed star, and a 10-pointed star. So let's draw the circle next. Same concept. Hold down the shift key. Got it right at 2. So I did that. I'll put it up here for now. And let's talk about the 5-pointed star, the 7-pointed star, and the 10-pointed star. I'm going to show you the trick on how to do that, okay? So the trick with drawing the stars, the first one is actually going to be just a basic star. And then the other two, you're going to have to hold down your mouse key and press the up arrow to get the number of points that you want in the star. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So first I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on the star tool. I'm going to hold down the shift key because I'm just used to holding down the shift key with shapes. You don't have to. And just draw my first star out right here. So the first one is a 5-pointed star, so I don't need to do anything. We have that part of the assignment correct. Now I have to draw another star. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw it out. I'm going to freehand it, not holding down the shift key. I am holding down my mouse key. Before I let go of my mouse key, I'm going to press my arrow key up twice, 6, 7, and then I'm going to let go of my mouse key. Now I have a 7-point star. The next one is a 10-point star. One thing you do have to realize with the star tool, when you add more points to the star and you go and add a new star from here, like I'm about to do now, it's going to start with this star, the last star that you created, okay? So I'm going to add a 10-point star. So we'll have a 7-point star when we draw it. Holding down the mouse key, I'm going to press the arrow key up 3 times, 8, 9, and 10. Now I have my 10-point star, okay? So I'll just sit this right here for right now. Now it says you're going to have to draw a triangle using the polygon tool and then give each one a different fill and color. So let me show you how to do the polygon. Same concept with the star. You'll draw it. Before you hold down the shift key, instead of pressing the up arrow key, because the up means adding, like, you know, +1, you're adding 1 point. The polygon tool, you're going to do the down arrow key until you get to the shape of a triangle. So probably 3 clicks, and you let it go, okay? Something neat I want to show you about the polygon tool and the different shapes here. Remember when I told you that you can click on transform and check the shape or the size of your shape here as well? Well, there's another tool here. Shape's in mind blown. There's another tool here, or a more advanced transform tools panel. Let me show you what I mean. Not this one, this is like the quick transform panel. But if I go, let me see, I might have it here. If I go here and click on transform, or if I go to window and click on transform, it does the same thing. Let me go back and click it again. You'll have the basic one that's up here, and then you'll have what we call I call it the advanced one. One of my students from 2 months ago said the advanced transform options. That makes sense. And you have more options when you have, different shapes. And for each shape, it's different. So let me go to this polygon. You see my polygon property, I'm down to 3. Polygon, you can, in the advanced transform one, you can change the size. So even if you don't want to do that method of holding down the mouse key and then pressing the down arrow key, you can go to Windows Transform and change the slider down to, was it 3? Yeah, change it down to 3. And each tool has, different options you can have. You can't really do that with the star tool, as you see. So you do have to do the down and the up arrow key for these, but for the polygon, you have the option of doing the up or down arrow key or just going to transform. So I just wanted to show you 2 ways you can do that triangle, okay? And just an FYI for the shape here, we'll talk about a little bit more about this, but you have options where you can cut like portions of the shape of the circle to make like a pie chart. And for infographics, for those who create infographics, this is what they use to create pie charts. They use this option in Illustrator. And for the rectangle, it's pretty much like sort of curving those edges a little bit, okay? But this is just a second option for you to do it if you don't want to use that shortcut key. So let's go to our layers. I want to show you what's happening with our layers. You see everything is on Artboard 1 and nothing's on Artboard 2 and 3. And then when I go to my artboards here, if I want to check, like there's nothing on Artboard 2, nothing on Artboard 3, but I drew everything on, double click too quick. Everything is on Artboard 1, so you can double check that there as well. Now it says to give each a different fill color, no outline, arrange the shapes into an interesting design on the artboard. So we've done with all the steps. It's just a matter of changing the colors. So I'll start here. I'm not going to change the colors too much. Oh, sorry about that. Let me turn my alarm off. Let's go up here. Click OK. I'm going to go down on this one. Go up here. I'm just picking some random colors. I'll leave that one the same. Okay, so create it or put it in some type of neat design. I'm not really for this particular artboard not looking for anything like too special. That's up to you how you decide that you want to design it. But I will say, actually, let me change the color of this because I need to be able to see what the other one is. One thing I do want to point out here when you're doing your designs, and you see how I put the circle behind the triangle, you can rearrange them by right-clicking on the shape, clicking on arrange, and send to the back. So now the circle's in front of there. You can also do that in your layers too, guys. I can rearrange my layers, like the same thing. If I want this to go back up or above it, I can drag them here, okay? So just an FYI, you have some options on how you can rearrange your shape. Okay, so I'm just going to put it in some type of design. It's not going to be perfect, but just something for right now. And put you behind here. Put everything behind it. You can be as creative as you want. I'm just putting in some type of design. Like I said, it's just something. I don't know. If you want to create something more interesting, you can. I'm just putting it together some type of way or whatnot. So let's talk about the second artboard, okay? But what I'm checking for, just to go back and sort of reiterate it, when I get your assignment, this is how I would check your first artboard, okay? I'm going to go to transform tool on your circle and make sure that it's 2 by 2. I'm going to go to transform tool on your square and make sure that's 2 by 2. Of course, obviously, I'm going to count these points to make sure you have a 5, 7, and 10 point. And I'm going to go here and make sure that you have a triangle. And I need to see here that this is a polygon, this is an ellipse and a rectangle, and this 3 needs to be paths. The reason why I'm checking for a polygon is because you can also create a triangle using a square. But the assignment says use a polygon, so this one has to be a polygon, okay? So just an FYI, that is how I want to check your first artboard. So when you do it, you know, check it, and you know, the same way I'm doing here, just to make sure your everything is gravy. So let's go to artboard 2. Artboard 2 says you're going to use 2 of every shape. 2 or more rectangles, 2 or more ellipses, 2 or more stars, 2 or more polygons. Give each a different size, color, type of stroke, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a picture with this really quick, very quick picture. I don't know what I'm going with this, but I'm just going to create a picture just to show you what you can do for your artboard, so you're not, you know, stuck just making some type of just basic design. So notice I clicked on artboard 2, the layer that not the artboard itself, but remember I made a layer in the layers panel called artboard 2. So I want to make sure it's highlighted when I create this. So I'm going to go back to my text tool and I'm going to paste the instructions here, okay? So it says 2 or more rectangles, 2 or more ellipses, 2 or more stars, 2 or more polygons, and give each different size, color, type of stroke, okay? All right, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is to create a picture, okay? Because I can use as many shapes as I want as long as I have 2 or more rectangles, ellipses, stars, or polygons. Polygons can stay a polygon. Polygon can turn to a different shape, size. You can change it into a triangle, but as long as it's a polygon, it doesn't have to stay the same shape, okay? So first things first, I'm going to take, find the blue that I like, maybe. And I'm going to draw my first rectangle. I'm going to go back here, go to my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to make this first rectangle stretch out. So that's rectangle 1, okay? Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to make this like a green color. All right. Uh-oh. Let me go here. Change it to green here first. Make sure don't have that one selected. If you have it selected, it's going to think you're trying to change the color of that one. So I didn't want to do that. Now I'm going to draw my second rectangle. Okay. So I met the requirements for 2 or more rectangles. So I want to go back and add some more, I could, okay? But that's done. So 2 or more ellipses. Okay. I am going to do a circle. I'm going to select out of here. I'm going to do an ellipse. I'm going to make the ellipse look like the sun. You sort of see where I'm going here with this. So now I'm going to create an ellipse. I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to put the ellipse here. I'll figure out where I want my other ellipse to go in just a moment because I have to do 2. So I'll figure that out. I'll use another ellipse somewhere else, but 2 or more stars. So let me select out of here, and I'm going to change my sun a little bit to this. And I'm going to go back to my star tool, and I'm going to draw a star. And I'm going to press the arrow key a little bit just to add a couple more points to it. I want my star to go below my ellipse because I'm trying to create rays to a sun. Okay. So I'll shrink it a little bit, hold down the shift key, and put it up here. Okay. So I have 1 star, 1 ellipse. I'll actually select both. And while I'm doing this, holding down the shift key and selecting both layers, with the shift key still held down, I'm going to shrink them down both at the same time. So I have my stars. I'm going to create clouds as well, which will sort of get rid of the need for more ellipses. So I'm going to change this to white. Notice I haven't used a stroke yet, so I'm going to use a stroke just for the sake of this drawing. I'm going to change my stroke to black so you can see it, and I'm going to change the stroke down very small. Okay, So I'm going to do something neat here with the ellipse tool. You don't have to be this advanced, but I'm going to show you how to draw clouds in Illustrator, okay? Let me make sure I'm on layer 2. All right, I'm just going to draw a bunch of circles here. And you can sort of see like the outlines for them, right? So I have these clouds, and I'm going to take my selection tool and sort of select all of them. I'm holding down the shift key and selecting all of them. I'm going to go to object, and I'm going to go to group. And then I'm going to go to my, let me see if it grouped them. It did group them. I'm going to go to my Pathfinder tool, which is under Windows Pathfinder. And I think what I want to do is unite this. And when I unite it, it turns everything into one particular shape, okay? So just FYI, if you're looking to do something a little interesting with your design. I'm going to press Control or Command C, Command V. Let's make some more clouds here. Why not? So now I have my ellipse. I have more than one circle that I used, okay? So I can take that off. Now I'm just left with what, stars and polygons. I'm just going to draw some flowers on the bottom and be done. So I'm going to do my my rectangle tool here. I'm actually going to do a green stroke. How do stems look? Are they? I'm trying to think. We'll do green. And I'm going to copy this color really quick, Command C or Control C, and I'm going to Command or Control V and paste it here. But I'm going to change the stroke down just a little bit, and I'll keep it at 1 point. Now remember, you can use more than one of the shapes. So even though I've already used 2 rectangles, I can go back in and sort of, you know, make more if I want. All right, so I have this rectangle here. I'm going to copy and paste. Let me actually do that again. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go to Edit, Paste and Place, and it pastes this thing right where, you know, it should be. So copy, paste and place, and I'm using the Command C option for this, okay? So I have these stems here, and you see the stems have their stroke, because remember, you do want to include a stroke on some of your designs, okay? So I have these flowers here. I'll spread them out just a little bit more, or the stems for the flowers, I guess. I'll move this over a little bit. And for those who are wondering, the like the pink line that you see here, I have Smart Guides are on. And Smart Guides sort of, you know, puts things, I guess, helps you to sort of measure the distance. So if you're trying to get things to be a little bit more even or trying to intersect a certain thing, that's what it shows. So I recommend that you keep it on there. It does help from time to time. So the only thing that I'm missing from Artboard 2 is going to be a star and polygons. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to make my stars, let me click off of here, my flowers and my polygons, like the pollen part. So I'm going to go here. I want my flowers to be purple. And then I want my stroke to be, I'll take the dark purple, okay. So I'm gonna draw these stars here. I'm gonna keep my mouse key down. I'll do that. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and sort of shrink it. Okay, so that's flower 1. I'll do a copy and paste, so put flower 2 here. And copy and paste and put flower 3, okay. And then I'll use the polygon tool to be like the pollen. So make sure I'm not have a shape selected give it this dark color here and go here. I'm just trying different things with the stroke here. It may not look too cool, but we're going to try it. So I'm going to go to my polygon tool and I'm going to hold down my shift key, and you see I still have it in the triangle. So I'm going to up the arrows on it a little bit so it does sort of look like a circle, right? I'm going to hold down the shift key and shrink it and zoom in a little bit more for you guys. And I'm going to put it in the middle of my flower. Okay. So I've created a little design that's just not like a basic design for Artboard 2 using 2 or more stars. I have a star behind here for the rays and then the other stars for the flowers. 2 or more polygons, my pollen or the little yellow in the middle of the flower polygons. 2 or more rectangles, the sky and the ground, and then 2 or more ellipses, which I showed you how I combined those to make the clouds, okay? What I am checking for when I check your work for this particular artboard, I'm going to go through and check that you have 2 of everything, at least 2, okay? So that is what I'm going to be checking for to make sure that you have that intact. I'm going to check to make sure that you have stroke used somewhere on your design. Not all of them have to have a stroke, but at least use stroke at least once or twice somewhere, okay? So I'm going to be checking to see that you use the stroke. That's pretty much it for that artboard. I'm not checking like the size of it, but I want to make sure you at least have 2 circles, 2 squares, 2 polygons, 2 stars, okay? And this is just an example of how you can create something a little bit more interesting for your artboard too, okay? Before I move on to artboard 3, are there any questions about artboards 1 and 2 and how to do your cross-checking when you do your assignment? Okay, and I'm hoping, and you know, like I said, this artboard, again, I don't draw. I do calligraphy, I don't draw. But what I like about Illustrator is if you learn to use the tools, you can at least do some basic drawings. You know, this looks like, if you have kids, this is some Peppa Pig stuff going on here. That's probably the extent of some of my drawings. I do better, I think, with Illustrator with a pen. But I did that just to show you if you have some type of idea, yeah, coloring book style, exactly. If you have some type of idea of how the shapes work and how you can move them, manipulate them, resize them, color them, then you can, you know, create basic stuff in Illustrator and, you know, build from there, okay? So that's just an example of how you can do your artboard too. You don't have to do my particular design. I've seen students do faces. I had one student do a clown. I had one student do a train. So think about the different shapes that you see and the things that you see every day and try to create that in your artboard too. It just makes it look a little bit more festive and interesting. So artboard 3. First, you're going to have to create a template layer. So let me show you how to do that, okay? So I already made a layer called artboard 3. So for the sake of this assignment, I'm going to go back and rename it template. Okay, and remember for your artboard 3, you have to choose one of these images, okay? I am going to choose, I always choose this cat. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm always choose this cat, so I'm going to choose that one. What you'll do, you'll download the image that you want, and remember the images are going to be right below here. So download the image that you want. I'm just going to do, I think it's cat 3. Give me 1 minute. Let me go to my files for week 1. Because I always do it. It's either that or the bear. So I have this cat, and this cat is cat 3, okay? So I gotta remember where it is. My 10 DS103 week 1. So now that I've downloaded it, I'm going to make sure my template layer, I made a layer called template. I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Place. And what Place does is allows you to place an image somewhere. So where did it go? Okay, here we go. So in my week 1 folder, I have this cat. So I'm going to place the cat here. And this is where we talk about raster images. You see how the cat sort of looks blurry? And then when I stretch the cat out, it actually looks okay here. But the more I stretch it out, you see how blurry it looks compared to what I've drawn here. This is the big difference between a raster image and the vector image. If I stretch that raster image out further than whatever the original size is, the image becomes blurred. Versus if this was drawn in a vector, which is what you're basically doing for your third artboard. You're taking this raster image and you're tracing it and making it a vector. So once I take it and make it a vector, then I can stretch out the cat, make it as big as small as I want. So get the cat where you want it, or the bear, or the chick, whichever one that you choose. Place it on your artboard, however you want it to be, okay, or wherever you want it to be positioned. Click on this template layer here. Actually, double click on it. And when you see this option that says template, just click there and click OK. And what it does, it dims it. Instead of changing the opacity manually, it changes it to 50% for you. So that way you can sort of see it in the background as you're drawing shapes. So now you have to create another layer that's called final artwork. Okay, so here's a tip that I do when I'm doing the assignment, okay? I place another image of the cat on the outside of my artboard. I just do it out here. So when I go and color it in, I can grab these colors. And what I mean by that is there's this eyedropper tool where you can grab the exact color of whatever it is you want to select. So I do that when I get finished tracing, because sometimes I trace using the stroke tool, and then I go back and sort of color it in. When you're done, you can go back and delete this image, but that's just a tip for those who are interested in using it. You don't necessarily have to do it, okay? So let me go to my final artwork layer. And you see I have this here. I'm going to start tracing this cat. There are several tools you can use to trace this cat. You can use the shapes, which I'm going to show you how to use basic shapes that are here. You can use your pen tool, you can use your curvature tool. I'm going to use a combination of the curvature tool and the shapes to do this, okay? Now, for those who are on the live session, what are some common shapes that you see in this cat that we can already sort of pick out? And I see a couple of them myself. Like if you were to start drawing this cat, what shapes would you look at using? What shapes do you see? Triangles for the ears, definitely. You could also maybe use triangles for the eyes, yes, and circles. So ellipse tool will be a good tool for you to use for this, okay? So that's going to be my thought process here. I'm going to start using the ellipse tool to sort of draw the face first, okay? So I'm going to go to my ellipse tool here. I am going to grab this color here really quick, and I'm going to go to my template layer, and I'm going to sort of make this out. And another way, actually, let me go and do this another way. Another way you can do this is turn off the color and just put a stroke on it. So you can see that it's the right place, and then you can go back and fill it in later. So let's do that so you can see the outline of it here. So final artwork, drawing this circle, okay? So if in the selection tool, remember you can stretch out the circle, stretch out the sides. But you notice with the selection tool, sometimes it doesn't get like all these little weird corners that are here, right? Well, that's where your direct selection tool comes into play. So this is the white arrow key. Remember, when you click on the white arrow key, you have to click on the anchor. And what this anchor does, like I said, it allows you to really maneuver the ends or the points of the anchor so that you can get it exactly where you want it to go. Okay, so these handles sort of changes like the bend of the curve for you. So you can get, the curve to bend how you want it to bend as well. Uh-oh, let me go back. Here we go. And then let me go here and change the curve here. Go down a little bit more here. And change you here. Then move you up here. Another thing that I like about the anchor tool as well, just a FYI, you can add anchor points. Like if I feel like I need an anchor point here to move this up, if you go to the pen tool, you can click on add anchor and you can go to this path and add that anchor point there. Go back to your direct selection tool and now you have some more curves you can play with and handles to sort of move around, okay? So that's another trick you can do here as well. And let me add another anchor tool here, add anchor and then move this baby out right here, okay? And bend you down just a little, bend you up just a little. I might have to add another anchor point here. So I'll add that and then move this down. So this is just one example of how you can use a shape to sort of get it to where I guess you want, it to be for this particular drawing, okay? I did the stroke so you can still see the actual cat behind it just to make sure you sort of get the shape where you want it to be. So that's the reason why I went back and did the stroke as well. Once you're done or you get, where you want it to be, you can go and fill it in. But I'm actually going to go in and just sort of still go in and trace the rest of them. Let me show you another trick here. We'll be using the curvature tool for this. The question was, does it have to be right on? Get it as close as possible. As long when you're done, if you can make it out to look like the face, get it as close as possible. And you don't have to use the same. I'm okay if it's a different color than what you're using here as well. So if I don't want this cat to be pink and gray, if you made it black and white, that's fine. But as long as the facial features are on point, then that's fine. Because I have a couple of points here, you see right here, that I can probably go in and modify. So just as close as possible. I'm going to use the ellipse tool here as well on the cheeks, because it just makes sense. I'm going to sort of rotate it down, stretch it out a little bit maybe. Let's stretch this one out. And to answer, Jamie, another thing about your question too, the more you zoom in, the more pixelated it's going to get. So that's why you try to get it as close as possible, because if you try to get to these pixelated lines, it's really not the actual line itself. So getting it as close as possible is the key here, okay? So I have this shape, and just a FYI, when you're doing your drawings and you have a shape and it's similar to another shape, copy and paste it and do reflecting. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to take this, and remember I'm using the stroke, so I have to click on the stroke when I'm in the selection tool. I'm going to do a Command C and a Command V. Let me make sure it pasted. Okay, there we go. I'm going to take it over here. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to transform. I'm going to go to reflect. I'm going to go to vertical. So it sort of switches over to where I need it to be. So you can, duplicate your drawing so you don't have to keep drawing the same thing over and over again. So for the eyes, the ears, once you draw one, copy, paste, reflect the other one. So you're not wasting, time drawing the same thing over and over again. It'll make your work a lot faster. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do the ears using the polygon tool. And I'm going to go down to a triangle. I'm going to go to my selection tool, which is the black arrow key, I am going to turn this baby around and I'm going to bring it down. That sounds like something off of SpongeBob. Bring it around down. Okay, so we're going to put it here. And notice that on this shape, the ears are sort of like behind the head, okay? So when I go into my layers, I want to make sure that I put my ears here. So I'll drag this down here. And it'll make it easier when you go in and fill it as well, okay? Now remember when I'm in this tool, remember I told you if you get the circle, you can drag it down a little bit so you can sort of get the curve you want. You can definitely do this for this ear. So I drag it down a little bit to get a little curve. I'm going to put it behind here just a bit. And yes, I know you see the stroke beneath it, but that's fine because what I'm going to end up doing is doing the fill and taking the stroke off when I do the coloring, okay? So I'm okay with the position of this particular shape. I want to stretch this out just a little bit more. And I'm going to do the same thing for this ear, but I'm not going to draw it again. I'm just going to copy it, paste it. I'm going to use my arrow key and move it over here a little bit. Now I'm going to right click on the shape, click on transform, reflect, and I'm going to make sure it's vertical and flip it over and drag it over to this other ear over here, okay? Now I might have to change it just a tad, but you see how easy it is when you draw one shape, you don't have to really go back and do the other one, it sort of takes care of itself, okay? And I'm going to stretch this out right here just a little bit more. Stretch you out right here. Okay, so I have my two ears. I have to do the same thing here for this particular, like the inside of the ear, so I'm going to do that. Do another copy and paste. And instead of like doing a reflect, I'm just going to shrink it down just a little bit more. I'm going to put it on the other side here. I'm going to take this and point it out. This is the circle that's in that shape. And all I'm doing is holding down the mouse key on that circle. I'm going to point it out just a little bit because it's not as round as the other ones, the top of the ear. I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm just going to shrink it, okay? All right. So I'm cool with that. Actually, let me bring you in a little bit right here and up. Okay. All right, same concept here. Once I do one, I copy and paste and I put it over here and do the other one, okay? I'm just teaching you how to work smarter and not harder. So right click, transform, reflect, make sure it's vertical and click OK. You might still have to do a little bit of modification, but it's, you know, saves you a lot of time from drawing the same thing over and over again, okay? So move this up here. I think I'm okay with this. I'm gonna leave it right there for now, okay? Now, two other ellipses that I see that I didn't see the last time are the eyebrows, and I'm gonna do that as an ellipse as well. Uh-oh, I held down the shift key, I didn't mean to do that. The spots, Jamie, I'm going to actually show you how to use the curvature tool. I was going to use the ellipse tool, but I want to show you this neat thing called the curvature tool. So I'm going to save that one for last. But yes, you can definitely use the ellipse tools. I've used the ellipse tools on the spots before, but I want to show you the curvature tool. We talked a little bit more about the curvature tool in week 2, to be honest with you. You're going to be doing another tracing in week 2, which is going to be neat. I'll save it for later, but and it really teaches you how to use the curvature tool. But we'll talk about that just a little bit in just a moment and how it works. So I have the basic shape of the eyebrow here. I'm going to do Command C and Command V. I'm going to take the copy and sort of place it over here. I'm going to right click on that copy shape, click on transform and reflect and make sure it's vertical and click OK. And then I'm going to drag it down here, okay? Let's go here. All right, so that's close enough for me. I'm going to go back to my polygon tool, which should still be in a triangle, and it is. Make a small triangle here. Again, remember you have this circle where you can sort of modify it a little bit. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to turn it to where it almost resembles the eye a little bit. I might have to do some stretching. And I might even have to go in and use my direct selection tool. So let's try that. So with the direct selection tool, again, you can take the anchor points and move them to where you want them to be. It sort of, manipulates it a little bit for you. And curve them in. I'm just using the handles. The key with the direct selection tool is to make what I've learned from, being an illustrator is to make like just very subtle changes to it, just one at a time till you can get it to where you're like comfortable with it, okay? That's what I've learned from using the direct selection tool. So let me see. I want to stretch this out a little bit more. I'm going to stretch this one out a little bit more. So I have the basic shape of the eye here. I'm okay with this shape. So I'm going to Command C and Command V, copy and paste. And what happened was I was in the direct selection tool, so I only copy and paste just that anchor. So let me go back to my selection tool and do it again. Command C and Command V, copies the whole shape, move it over here, right click, transform, reflect, vertical, click OK. And just a little bit of a rotation here maybe. And we should be good. Rotate it just a little bit more. So we're good here. And I'm going to fill it in just a moment. So I have the eyebrows. I can probably do the nose as well. I'll do another polygon and just do another triangle here. I'm going to turn it around here, shrink it a little bit. And I'm going to curve it. I'm going to go to my direct selection tool and see if I can change the way that these curves look. And bring this curve down. Bring you down here as well. There we go. What is this curve? And I'm going to stretch this one out a little bit as well. Curve it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so close enough for me. And let's talk about the rest of it. I have my whiskers. I have the two spots that are on the cat. So let me introduce you to this handy dandy tool called the curvature tool, okay? So the curvature tool is similar to the pen tool, and we'll get into this in week 2, but I'm going to show you what it does in week 1, just in case you want to try to use it for your particular assignment. So let me go here. The curvature tool is here. And what it does is like connecting the dots. It's the best way I can describe. I'm actually going to I might have to turn my nose layer off, but let me start here. So I'm going to start at this whisker, and then I'm going to just sort of connect the dots here. It's like a predictive tool. It sort of predicts what you're going to do next, okay? When I'm done, because it'll keep going. If you have an open shape, like an open line, when I mean an open shape, like a line is an open shape, you don't have anything closed like a square or a triangle. press the escape key, and then you can start on the next one, okay? So I'm gonna do this one. So it's like connecting the dots, but you're sort of guiding the dots to where you want it to go, okay? So that's the second one, press the escape key. And you notice that, okay, yeah, the actual line itself is not as thick as that, but remember you can go to your stroke, and remember we talked about changing the size of your stroke. So you can go in and do that with that line when you're done, okay? So that's an option. Let me go here and do the same thing for this one here too. Let me press the escape key. I'm going to do this to the whiskers here. Okay, press escape. All right, and escape just ends that path so you can start a new one. If you don't press the escape key when you're using the curvature tool, you'll think you want to keep going. Same thing with the mouth. Escape. I'm going to go here, zoom in a little bit, escape. Uh-oh. If you click on the path again, it tries to continue that drawing. So let me press escape and start right here. And I might have to go in and do some editing to connect that, which is fine. So done with that. And I'll go back and correct that line in just a minute. So again, you can use this, let me press escape. You can use this for the lines that are in your drawing. You can also use it for different shapes. So let me show you what I mean here. I'm going to use the curvature tool for this particular shape here. So I'm going to start here. Oh, I'm sorry, my mouse got ahead of me. Uh-oh. Not what I wanted to do, so I'm going to Control Z here. Control Z and Command Z. I actually wanted to sort of connect, but it selected the other path. That's fine. So I can sort of do this and create like the own path for it and sort of connect it. Hopefully it closes. And I thought it was going to do that too. But I can make these paths too with the actual curvature tool. And then you can go back in if you want. Let me see if it works. I selected the wrong thing. Let me make sure I'm selecting this. Add the color to it. You see how it adds that color to it? So you'll have to probably go in and sort of change it, stretch it out a little bit more so that it fills everything up. But this is the easiest way to do things like spots as well. You can use the ellipse tool. Let me press escape here. But you can also use the curvature tool to sort of draw things out, okay? So let me start here. Actually, it clicked on the other path. So let's start here. Let me zoom in. Press the escape key. And I want to start my path right here. Zoom out a little bit. And what you can also do as well to complete these shapes, which I completely forgot, I can go in and hide layers, and let's talk about that for a minute. So if I want to hide every layer itself for the spots that I'm doing here to complete the path, you can definitely do that. Like if there's something that's in the way, you can go in and hide the layers. I'm missing one down here. So now if I want to go back and like pick up this path and close it off completely, I can do that without it running into any of the other layers, okay? So that's another option as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that with the other spot too. And it just depends on where you start. One thing I will say, especially for those who do the bear, or any face that you decide to trace, the easiest thing is to start from the bottom up. So like for me, I started with the face and then I just did the features that would have been there. So probably instead of doing the cheeks and stuff, I think I probably would have done maybe, done maybe the spot second and then went to like the ears and then the face. Okay. Trying to continue it. Let's do this. Oh, you zoomed in too much there, Nikki. Let's scroll over here. There we go. I'm going to start it here. Probably should have closed it. Let me see if I can go back and close these paths. So now it's connected. I want to close this one too. Yeah, so now it's connected. All right. So now I have my two spots and I didn't really have to do like a lot of manipulation with the, by using the ellipse tool. So I wanted to give you several options that you have when you are using your shapes and even the curvature tool. For those who want to try the pen tool, you definitely can when it comes to like tracing your particular animal of your choice. And then it's just a matter of going back in and similar to what we did with the other ellipses, just changing the handles and how they look and moving things around so it sort of matches everything, okay? And it's just an easier way of using your drawing tools. I like the curvature tool out of all of them because again, all it's doing is playing connect the dots or predicting where you want to go with your curve, and you're just guiding it. You're telling it, okay, this is the next space, this is the next space, versus the pen tool and other ones, you have to do a little bit more things to sort of get it to where you want it to go. So now that I've completed my cat, it's just a matter of going into the tool itself and coloring it in. So you see I have this first dot selected. I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool and I'm going to click here. And you notice my stroke is gone. So let me tell you a little bit about the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool also, it takes the entire property of whatever it is that you're coloring in. So there's no stroke on it. It's going to remove the stroke as well, okay? So I don't have to go back and remove the stroke. It's sort of there. Let me work on this path here. That one's that. This one's another white spot. I'm gonna color this one black. And you see for this one, that's gonna be the tricky one. When you do the copy and paste of that color, it's gonna change it from a stroke to a shape. So for this one, it might be easier, which I'll work on after the fact, to just up the stroke on it, okay? So we're gonna leave that one like it is. Let's work on like an eye or an ear. So let's do the ear up here. Did I select it? Sorry. Make sure I selected it. So now it's that color. Select the inside of it. Eyedropper tool. You see everything sort of coming in place now. And I see that this is not below this. So I'm going to move it down. So where it is below the head. Let me do the same thing here. This color. And these two ears are two different colors. So when you do the eyedropper tool, remember this one's lighter than the other one, okay? I remember when I first did this, that one caught me off guard. All right. What else we have to color in? Let's do these cheeks over here. Where's the other one? Is it? Yeah. And I see that my cheek needs to be raised up. And I believe my eye does too, but instead of raising my cheek up, let me lower the spot. And where's the head? And let me put these second set of ears below that as well. There we go. Where is this one? There we go. Actually, it goes above this one. Okay. So now I see everything else. Let me go in and try to select it. The eyebrows are gray. My eyes, and I'm going to do a shift and select the other one. So when I color them, I can color them at the same time just to give you some more options so you can see how it works. The nose. So when I'm done, you see I pretty much basically have the shape of the cat. You can sort of see some things like I need to sort of straighten out here with the curve. I'm going to take this eyedropper tool. I'm not going to click on anything, but I'm going to take this eyedropper tool and just select this black that's here. I'm going to copy the color, and then I'm going to go to my stroke here on my mouth, and I'm going to change the color by double clicking it and pasting that number into here. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. And then I'm just going to up the stroke. I'll do 2. Same thing with these whiskers. I'm going to take this gray color that's here, copy the hexadecimal number. I'm going to select, I'm going to show you a fast way to do this one. Hold down my shift key, I'm going to select all of the whiskers, okay? So I should have 4 things selected, then go to the stroke and then paste that number. Now they've all changed and I can up the stroke a little bit. So now you see I have the whiskers. One thing I like to do when I'm done as well is when I go to my final artwork, I sort of like turning off the template layer just to see where I am with it. So you see I have the shape of the cat. You know, it's not the exact same thing. I have some modifications to do, but I did it in roughly, 30 minutes or so. Some things I would probably go in and do, like I said, is sort of go in and sort of smooth out some corners, connect the nose. Those will probably be like the last touches of my drawing here, just to make sure everything looks, great. Making sure that my dots that I created up here with the curvature tool, they are connected to everything and they're not like, too far off. Just doing some small modifications here as well, okay? So are there any questions while I try to finish up the little small details of this drawing? Put this up here. Do you know what tools that you think you're going to use? Are you going to use a combination of the curvature tool and the shapes? Or, what are your thoughts on this so far, now that you've seen it in the live session? Pull this out a little bit more. Curve it in a little bit. Trying to make my nose look a little bit more curvy. Okay, I will play with this some more after the live and then post the final one. But I think it's off to a good start. So for this artboard, your third artboard, what I would recommend, what I would check for, let me say that, is that you have your template layer. So I'm going to hide your artwork and make sure you have a template layer. And then I'm going to unveil your artwork and make sure that it's here. I can tell, what you've done by based on, the shapes you use, the ellipse, the paths. I'm going to be looking for those as well, just to make sure that you drew it on your own, okay? And that's all I'm checking for artboard 3. Once you are done with your assignment, you're going to go to File, you're going to go to Save As. Hold on, you guys. I'm going to go to my week 1 folder. And you're going to save it as DS103 Assignment 1, first name and last name. So what I'm going to do is to save it as this one up here. It's going to tell me, do I want to replace it? I'm going to say yes, because I've done it before. And this is the screen that shows up when you save your assignment. One thing I want you to make sure is this last option says save each artboard to a separate file. Make sure it's not checked. Do not check it. What it does is saves it into a separate file, and then you end up turning in one and without all 3. So make sure that you don't have this checked. If it's not checked, good. If it's checked, uncheck it. And then click OK, and your document is saved, and it's ready for you to submit. That is the end of this week's live session as far as the walkthrough and everything for what you have to do. Before we end the recording, are there any questions or concerns for me about your week 1 assignment, your assessment, discussions, anything else about the course? You asked me how I did all 3 artboards on one. Let me go over that again. So the way that, you're welcome, Rebecca. The way that you do all 3 artboards on one is before you even start this, you're going to, let me actually close this out because I've saved it. When you go to your Adobe Illustrator, you're going to go to Create New. When you go to Create New, you'll have the new document dialog. That's what's on the screen. And you go to Print and you go to Letter. You're going to see letter in 6 by 612 by 792 points. Make sure to change it to inches, and it'll automatically change it to 8.5 by 11. You'll see your artboards here. You see it's at 1. Just change it to 3 and click Create. And then when you open up the new document, you'll have all 3 artboards. And that's how you do it. You're welcome, Jamie. All right, you guys want to go ahead and end the recording here. I have to give Zoom some time to process it. If you have any questions, I'll be up for the next hour or 2. So feel free to text me or email me. Otherwise, have a great night. Thank you so much for hanging in with me for this lecture. Next week's lecture, again, will be broken up, one at 12, one at 5:30, so you don't have to sit in the 2 hours that you did today, okay? Have a great evening.